Well, good day, folks. We are now here at the Westwood Village Pierce Brothers Memorial Park. I've decided to cover the very, very disturbing case of the death of Marilyn Monroe. This is a case that's disturbed me for many years because, quite frankly, after looking at this case, after reading and hearing the testimonies of people that were there, the whole thing reeks of cover-up. In the video description, I'm going to put a link to a TV broadcast that was made in 1992 called the Marilyn Files. It describes everything much better than I can in a few minutes, but let's just put it this way. Did she eliminate herself? Absolutely not. Sergeant Jack Clemens was the first one on the scene. He got a call at 4:20. He arrived at 4:40, I believe it was, 4:45. He examined the body, which was on the bed. Marilyn's body was completely nude, just covered with a sheet. She was lying face down with her hands at her side in a soldier's position, is the way Sergeant Clemens described it. There were pill bottles on her nightstand that were all neatly capped and arranged in a row. Sergeant Clemens said that the whole place looked, at least around Marilyn's bed, it looked very, very neat. Miss Eunice Murray, who was the housekeeper at the time, said that she discovered the body just a few minutes after midnight, a few minutes after 12. And yet Jack Clemens got the call at 4:20, which means, if that's true, Miss Eunice Murray and Dr. Ralph Greenson, the psychiatrist, were over 4 hours in that house with a dead body before they contacted the police. So right away, things didn't make sense. As he questioned them, he found them both to be very, very evasive. They were hesitant to answer questions. Miss Murray changed her story radically. First that night, when Sergeant Clemens was pulled off the case and Officer Iannone was assigned to it, she changed the discovery time from 12:10 to about 3:30 a.m. So she changed the time right there. Dr. Ralph Greenson gave some kind of tall tale as to why they didn't call the police right away. There were other inconsistencies that are well documented and well covered in the video link I'm going to put in the description. Here's another problem. Walter Schaefer, who was the owner and founder of Schaefer Ambulance at the time, for quite a while he denied that any ambulance was called during the night, but then a few years later he changed his story to say yes, an ambulance was called quite a bit before 4, more like 12:01 or in the morning or so. Officer Jack Clemens, the original officer that was on the scene, later said that his superiors were pressuring him to sign photographs that he never took, to sign reports that he never wrote. Now look, as you can see, Marilyn has visitors right now. After 63 years, she still draws visitors to her grave. So that's part of the reason why I'm doing this in the car, so I don't interfere with anyone else. Marilyn's best friend, one of her friends I should say, Robert Slatzer, who claimed to be one of her lovers, he wrote a book in 1974 about the cover-up. He got a death threat, so he had to have police protection. Anthony Summers, a Scottish reporter, did a lot of research. He wrote the book Goddess, The Life of Marilyn Monroe. He found enormous evidence that basically, pointed to Robert Kennedy. Robert F. Kennedy. Not not talking about Bobby Kennedy Jr. Bobby Kennedy Jr. was an 8-year-old boy when this happened. I'm talking about his father, Robert F. Kennedy. Robert F. Kennedy was definitely in the house. Witnesses, neighbors too, saw him in the house. Even before midnight, they saw him enter and leave. Anyway, there's a lot of evidence, and you can read about it in the link, hear about it in the link, that there was a cover-up. There's no question that the people who covered it up were protecting Bobby Kennedy and President John Kennedy. Here's my question: do you find any witness that changes his or her story? I mean, radically changes it to be credible, and not just the same night, but over the years they change and alter their story. No. However, the witnesses that insist that they know she was murdered, people like James Hall, the ambulance driver, people like Sergeant Jack Clemens, who first arrived on the scene, he ended up losing his job over this. He was pressured to quit. Or how about Lionel Grandison? Also, he later changed his name to Samir Muqaddin. He was working in the coroner's office at the time. He was pressured to sign the death certificate without the proper reports accompanying it. In fact, he was told by the coroner, Theodore Curfey, you better sign this or else. So he signed it under duress. 3 books that I have in my library, I've read them, I'm very disturbed by them. One is by J. Margolis and Richard Buskin. It's called The Murder of Marilyn Monroe, case closed. Jay and Richard uncovered evidence to show that Dr. Greenson, her psychiatrist, was actually part of the murder. There's also Lionel Grandison, or also he changed his name to Samir Muqaddin. He wrote the book just a few years ago before he died, Memoirs of a Deputy Coroner, the case of Marilyn Monroe. And probably the most disturbing of all is the one written by Detective Mike Rothmiller, Bombshell, the night Bobby Kennedy killed Marilyn Monroe. I will take pictures or take video of these 3 books. Now, in this day, since Donald Trump was elected and he's promised complete transparency, President Trump signed executive orders releasing the secret files on the death of John Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, and the death of Martin Luther King. Files that had been top secret, he's declassified them. He wants transparency. I think it's time that the government, the federal government, as well as the city government of Los Angeles, also release these files on Marilyn Monroe, because they've been hidden way too long. Okay, I'm going to walk to her grave, her crypt, but before I do, let me show you the books that I recommend. Okay, these are the books I have in my library. This is J. Margolis and Richard Buskin's book, The Murder of Marilyn Monroe, case closed. This is the book by Samir Muqaddin, Memoirs of a Deputy Coroner. Actually, Samir Muqaddin was forced to quit his job at the coroner's office. He was accused of stealing from corpses. He said he didn't do it, but actually I believe him. I find the guy, because Samir Muqaddin, he's another one. He never changed his version of events in the coroner's office at the time. Never changed anything. And of course, Mike Rothmiller. Now, some people that have investigated the case, they don't believe Mike Rothmiller. I know that Anthony Summers doesn't think that he's telling the truth here. Anthony Summers did a lot of investigation on this case, but he doesn't think that she was murdered. Mike Rothmiller he was an officer in the organized crime investigation division of the LAPD. It was a top secret thing that had ties to, they had ties to high powers in the United States. And yeah, they kept, just like the FBI and the CIA, they kept secret files on citizens. Anyway, I highly recommend these 3 books because we're not just talking about the death of a beautiful actress. We're talking about corruption and government cover-up. Which, I mean, after 60 years, why is anyone still protecting Bobby Kennedy? I don't understand. Anyway, out of respect for Marilyn, let's take a walk to her grave. I've had at least 4 or 5 visitors come by her grave since I've been here. And it's incredible. Somebody once said that extremely few people are much bigger in death than they were in life, but Marilyn was. And here she is. Somebody left her flowers a few days ago. Hugh Hefner, of course, bought a crypt next to hers. There's a couple of other interesting people that are buried by her. This one up here, Jita Alpar. She was a famous vocalist, international performer, vocalist, actress. But the one who really grabs all the attention is Marilyn, and with good reason. Cover up, cover up, cover up. Now, the Lord Jesus said, "There is nothing hidden which shall not be made known. Nothing hid which shall not come to light. What you hear in secret, shout it from the housetops." And, well, judgment shall come for all who think that they've covered up their deeds. So, no, Marilyn did not commit suicide. And I highly recommend, if you haven't seen this 1992 television broadcast, I'm going to put a link in the description. I recommend that you watch it because it's very, very, very disturbing. So